The restaurants you love, the food you crave, and the people that make it all happen. We tell their stories on the Paper Trails podcast with Albemarle Paper Supply.
What's going on, guys? How are you? We are back with the Paper Trails podcast. This is episode 10, season 2, and I am very, very excited. We are at the Goodyear House in NoDa, and I'm with Chef Chris, and super pumped. We met through some mutual friends, and actually Austin, my videographer, had sent me a little screenshot. You know, Chris has had some awesome opportunities, you know, to be on Chopped, and to be to battle Bobby Flay, and I think you won.
Yeah.
I think, was it just released maybe a few weeks back?
Yeah, Bobby Flay just released 2 weeks ago.
So it just aired. Yeah. You know, Austin had seen it and he screenshotted it and was like, "Hey, do we know this guy?" And I'm like, let me find out. And so, very excited to have Chris on and just talk about, you know, obviously Chris has the Goodyear House here in NoDa that he opened a little over a year ago.
Yeah, we opened in February of 2020.
Okay, so a year and a half almost.
Year and a half ago. And you know, obviously, just so you know, if you guys have not been to the Goodyear House in Charlotte, it is beautiful in here. It's my first time in here. Very, very well put together. Beautiful vibe. I love the feel. And so, and they just opened up a new location down in Rock Hill. Yeah, that one's called Old Town Kitchen and Cocktail. So it's a different concept, but same architects and stuff. So it's a lot of the same kind of
same
points.
vibe. Okay,
yeah,
and you guys just opened.
We just opened that last Thursday. So a week and a half.
So week and a half. You know, anybody in the restaurant industry, you know how that goes.
Yeah.
Your first couple of weeks, months, super hectic. But Chris carved out some time and wanted to chat with us. To tell us about his story, his background, how he ended up here. I know a lot of people, you know, if this is your first time listening, our podcast is all about the food business in the Charlotte, the Triad, Hickory area, and also about, you know, success and entrepreneurship and, you know, the struggles of that and, you know, all the things that it takes. And, you know, this isn't Chris's first year and he opens up 2 restaurants just like that. There's a lot of grinding, you know, and I'm sure we'll get into that goes into, you know, having a partnership and, you know, having a flourishing restaurant and having the ability to hire somebody to come and, you know, do a lot of these little things. And so, Chef, well, why don't we get into maybe some of your background? Where are you from?
Yeah.
Give us some context.
Sure. So I was born and raised here in Charlotte.
Okay.
I'm a unicorn. There's not a lot of us.
That is true.
But yeah, I was born at Presbyterian Hospital. I grew up here. I went to Harding High. I'm a West Charlotte guy. I was born and raised in West Charlotte. Still live there.
Yeah.
You know, after high school, I was trying to decide what I wanted to do with my life.
So you didn't always want to get
So I started working in restaurants when I was 14.
Okay.
I was a busboy at a fish camp. So you know, one of those bastions of the South where you just fry fish all night long.
My parents have fish houses, just so you know.
Yeah.
So I
you get it,
I
right?
did the same exact thing.
Yeah, so I was a busboy when I was 14, and then 15 or 16, they moved me back into the takeout room. So I was answering phone calls and courting up tartar sauce and stuff. And
I know that life.
Yeah, and then 17-ish or so, they moved me out to Expo. Okay. So that's where I was like actually, you know, would call the orders and then put the orders together on trays and put them out into the dining room. So that's you know, the link between the kitchen and the front of house, right? But that's when I fell in love with the restaurants.
Okay.
But I didn't think that I wanted to be a chef or be a restaurateur or anything like that.
Okay.
I really didn't know what I wanted to do. So I went to art school because I was really into art. Went to art school at UNC Charlotte for a year. And then about a year in, I was like, what am I going to do with an art degree? Like, what's, you know, if I want to be...
You were practically looking at it.
Yeah, I'm like, if I want to be an artist, then I can be an artist without going to a 4-year school for it. I could be a professor with an art degree. That'd be about it. Yeah. So I switched gears and said, I do love restaurants. Again, that the Expo experience kind of turned me on to the watching the kind of chaotic like organization of a kitchen, and really kind of jumping on that. So I decided to go to Culinary School. I went to Central Piedmont, which has a great culinary program. I tell people all the time now, still, go to Central Piedmont. It's a great school. It's
you're getting the education of Johnson & Wales or the Culinary Institute of America, but for a fraction of the price. So,
I've heard that from a lot of people. Actually, you're not people that have gone to other schools that the cost of those schools have gone up the last 10, 20 years.
It's insane. Yeah.
You know, Chef Joe over at Bang Bang Burger and a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, Chef Sam Diminich. I mean, these guys all went in there like, it's good, but you're
paying for it. Yeah. You're paying for it. And I mean, you know, when you come out of cooking school, you're going to get a line cook job and you're going to be making, you know, 12 to 16 bucks an hour. And it's going to take you forever to pay that back. But, so I went to Central Piedmont. I mean, I chose Central Piedmont probably to stay in town. Johnson & Wales wasn't open yet. Stay in town for a girl. So I started dating a girl in high school. Was looking at some schools in Atlanta. Was looking at the Culinary Institute of America up in Hyde Park in New York. But I was like, I think this thing with this girl is kind of serious, and she's my wife now. So it worked out.
There we go. There we go.
So I married my high school sweetheart. We have 2 kids. Went to. So sorry, I'm jumping all around here. Good. But went to CPCC for Culinary School. Got a job while I was at Central Piedmont with McNench House Restaurant, uptown Charlotte. Okay. Which is
that's still there or no?
It's still there. Okay. It's been in business since 1988. It's 25 seats, chefs, tasting menus only, dinner only, 5 days a week.
Was that your first?
That was my first non-fish camp restaurant job.
So what was that like? Like what did you learn? I mean, obviously you just got into the school at CP. What was your first taste of that?
Yeah, it was interesting. Ellen, who owns McNench, is at the time was the chef owner. Had never gone to school herself, so she was all just self-taught. Okay. And I learned a lot working there. I worked there for 9 years, so I learned a whole lot working there. But it was I think what I learned most there was about the kind of the family community, like closeness of a restaurant
culture,
crew, like the culture.
It's good
because the culture at the Captain's Galley was great, but I mean those were all hired guns. They were just there for a paycheck. And at McNench House, there was people who had been there forever, and loved it. And so just kind of breeding that culture of family and of hospitality towards each other is something that has really stuck with me, and I've tried to do that at every other restaurant that I've been to.
Which now, sorry to interrupt you, but now, Chris, is more important than ever. I mean, maybe back in the day, my dad's age, our family's really close friends with Kazaka's family but I mean, back then it was like, man, just hire some people and get the food out. Yeah. Now, culture, environment, people, huge. It's everything. It's a lot, right?
It is.
And so, because times have changed. Yeah. 40 years ago, 30 years ago, now, restaurant industry has changed. I'm sure you've seen it too.
Oh yeah, no, I've seen a huge change. But I was so lucky to get in to that kind of that kind of culture, like really early in my career. Sure. But I have, definitely seen some changes and talking with chefs, with counterparts, with friends. Sure. What they went through, and then comparing it to what I went through is night and day difference. And I'm like so blessed that I didn't have to go through what they went through. Yeah. With chefs screaming at you and throwing pots and pans and that kind of stuff.
We've heard stories. I haven't experienced that, but we've heard stories of
I mean, Ellen was tough. I'm not going to say that like Ellen Davis is like a pushover. Yeah. She was tough. Yeah. But she never, lost her temper where she was just like railing on you or whatever.
So you really cut your teeth there. Those 9 years.
There. I started there when I was 19-ish, 20. And then when I was 21 is when I was graduating from school, and she named me executive chef at that time. Nice. The chef that I had trained under had left to open his own restaurant, and it's like a 3-person kitchen, so it's not hard to climb that ladder. Yeah. But I was there, kind of right place, right time. Named executive chef there when I was 21 and ran that kitchen until I was 29.
What was that like? Actually, like running the kitchen at 21. I mean, you're still young.
I'm still real young. Still learning a lot of stuff. Yeah. the first few years, I was executive chef, but it was really just me running Ellen's menus and not really deviating a lot from kind of what she had done for, 15, 16 years at that point. But it was probably, I was 25, 26-ish, and I was like, I need to do something different. I either need to leave this restaurant or I need to start broadening what this restaurant does.
What led you, like, did you start getting numb to everything? Was it kind of like stale? Like what got you? Okay. It was kind of just, you were kind of bored with it?
Yeah, I mean, I'd been there, again, running that kitchen for 3-4 years at that point, but not really, I would have a new dish here and there, but it was a lot of the
nothing
standards,
drastic.
a lot of the classics. Yeah. And I think that I sat down with Ellen one time at, again, like 25 or so, and I was like, no disrespect to you at all. What you've built here is fantastic, but we need to modernize it a little bit. We need to spruce it up. We didn't have a website. We weren't on Open Table. Like, if you wanted to eat at McNinch House, you had to search it out.
Of it, yeah.
And so I implemented, and it was only a 7-course tasting menu at that time. And I was like, we need to have a 3-course tasting menu so people can get in and get out if they want to. And I would love to do a chef's table. So we built a chef's table out of a room that had been the office. We relocated the office to the upstairs, the second floor of the restaurant. And we turned that into a chef's table room, which is right outside the kitchen.
What is a chef's table room for people that know?
So it was you have the whole room to yourself. It's one table, and the chef is kind of your server for the night. We would do 12 to 18 courses in there, and I was the server for it. I mean, we had our sommelier and our waitstaff took care of them, setting the table and clearing and that kind of stuff, but I came out with every course, and I served courses, and I did tableside stuff and talked about the ingredients and where we got them from, where we were sourcing them from, because this was right around the time that I started to get really into local foods and that kind of stuff too.
What year is this then?
So this would have been, 2008-ish, maybe.
So you're kind of before the local food thing was before. Because the last 5 to 8 years has really been popular, right?
Yeah, Tim Drudy uptown at Mimosa was doing a lot of local sourcing. Okay. And so I kind of really looked up to him as, I never worked with him, but I looked up to him in a mentor sort of way because he had helped to found the Matthews Farmers Market and was doing a lot of local sourcing in Mimosa, and started to bring this wave in. Uptown. Yeah. And then at the same time, Cassie Parsons was opening up Harvest Moon Grill uptown, which really made a splash in the farm to table kind of scene around here. So I was really kind of watching what Tim and Cassie were doing and trying to emulate it a little bit. Okay. I had met Nick Daniels, who was running Wood and Vine at the time, and he was sourcing some local stuff. So he helped me, find some sources and that kind of stuff too.
Love it. Okay.
But 2000. So I ran that kitchen then from 2008 to 2012 was completely mine. I was doing every menu. I had done a 3-course, 5-course, 7-course, and then that 12 to 18 chef's table menus. I created the website myself. I got us on Open Table.
Was there a lot of growth in the restaurant in those years?
A lot of growth. I mean, our reservations started to take off where we were getting very busy, and we started making some money, and things were really good. But at that point,
I love that.
Again, 2012-ish came around, and I was like, I've been here now for 10 years, 9-10 years, and I'm ready for something different. So I didn't leave McNinch, but I started a pop-up concept called the Market Kitchen, where the goal was to source everything locally, and then do these dinners that popped up here and there around town. So
was that popular then, or not really?
Not really. It got a little more popular after.
Because I'm hearing a lot of pop-ups now, but I wouldn't think. You said 2012.
2012, yeah.
So that's 9 years ago. Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting.
Yeah,
I think one other thing before we move on that I think is very valuable for a lot of people maybe listening. Get creative. Yeah. Don't, if you feel yourself, one thing that I really like is to make sure you know yourself. Right. If you feel like you're getting stale and you're not getting creative, because I feel like chefs have that artistic, creative part where you've got to change it a little bit or else it's going to get very mundane fast. Yeah. And, don't be afraid. I mean, no matter what business you have, you're in landscape, you're in,
try something else,
Right.
right? Like get,
Right.
don't get pigeonholed in something. I mean, it sounds like you just added 2-3 different things, website, pop, 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 and then things changed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a very valuable lesson for the viewers to like think about at least,
No, it is. I mean, it was, I always think of chefs, we do have an artistic side to us for sure. I mean, we're creating new things and stuff, but I think of us more as craftsmen than artists, like carpenters almost.
Yeah.
Because if you can build, a plate one time and send it out and then you're done, you never do that again, then you're a true artist. But that doesn't happen in restaurants. You have to create that same plate 100 times every single night,
consistent,
right?
yep.
And so like a carpenter has to build the same table.
It's a good point.
Right?
That's a good
but
analogy. Yep.
Think about if that carpenter was building that same table and that's all they built for 5 years. They would probably start to go crazy, right?
100%.
So then you start to look at like, oh, well, I can build the chairs or I can build whatever, So I agree completely.
And then,
100%
and then what happens is even the quality will go down because they don't care anymore.
They don't care anymore, right? So you have to always be looking at what's going on.
I love that.
In the world around you, and be open to change.
Flavors, do different things. What's popular? What's trending? I like that. Okay, so you transitioned into pop-ups.
Yeah, so I was,
how did that go?
It was a lot of fun. McNinch House was completely old school, like very classical European cooking and technique and everything. And I wanted to do, this was also, 2012 was kind of right when Alinea in Chicago was starting to pop off with like a lot of their molecular gastronomy, modernist cuisine using chemicals and spherification and foams and all that, gels and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
We weren't doing any of that at McNinch because it was so like classical.
Sure.
So I was interested in experimenting a little bit.
Okay.
So I was like, well, I'm going to create kind of a movable restaurant that doesn't have walls, where we're sourcing everything locally and we're utilizing a lot of molecular stuff with some of the classical stuff that I learned at McNinch House. So we did a couple of pop-ups in 2012. We did one at the Dunhill Hotel, which we'll come back around in the story.
Okay.
We did one on a farm in Concord. That's the same year that my mom passed away. So I did a pop-up for her the next month in her honor, where we did a pig picking, and we took a whole pig and we broke it down and cooked the pig different ways. So each cut was cooked a different way, and then had a lot of really cool vegetables. And we raised $2,000 to give to the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network.
That's awesome.
In her memory for that pop-up. And then did a pop-up at the Beckler Modern Art Museum uptown, where we took over the lobby and did 120 people, a 4-course dinner, inspired by the art on the walls that they were,
That's pretty cool,
them.
actually.
It was really cool. And I partnered up with Josh Villalpando from the Assorted Table Wine Shop in 7th Street uptown, and he did my wines for that night. I met a lot of really cool people that night. But it was right then where the owner of McNinch said, "Okay, you got to choose one thing. You got to either do McNinch or you got to do this."
Was this starting to grow and
starting to grow? At Charlotte Magazine featured me in an article about it and stuff. So my name was starting to get out there a little bit, and Ellen was like, "It's either us or you got to go off and do this. You can't do both because it's distracting, right?"
Yeah.
And
which is a good point.
It's very fair.
I mean, listen, it's
very fair.
We only have so much mental energy.
Right.
Like that's the reality.
Right.
I mean, you try to have 7 businesses that you run 100%.
There's
you
no
just
way.
can't. You just can't, right?
There's no way.
And so, obviously you wanted to do your own thing. I love that. I respect that. Right. She understood it from a business owner and a practicality. And so,
and she encouraged me. She didn't say like,
that's awesome. Good for her.
What are you doing? This
Good
is
for
dumb.
her.
She was just like, if this is what you're passionate about, you need to explore it. You need to go do something. So I got a call from the Dunhill Hotel that I had done the pop-up in. They were looking to make a change with their chef. And they asked if I would come on as a culinary director for the hotel.
And then they met you through the pop-up?
They met me through the pop-up.
Okay, cool.
So in a roundabout way, doing that pop-up is what landed me that job.
Okay.
Someone from Charlotte Magazine was at that first pop-up, wrote about it. I had met the GM of the Dunhill very briefly, and then he read the article, months later.
That's
and
awesome.
I was like, oh, maybe we should talk to Chris. So
Yeah.
they brought me in, and I became culinary director for that hotel in 2013. We opened up the Asbury in 2014. Got a lot of accolades and
Was it the first
awards there.
Was it the first thing you had opened?
That was the first thing I'd opened.
What was that like? Like, what was it like? Going from your own thing to
It was interesting because I was so new to it. I really had no idea what I was doing, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm faking it till I make it.
Yeah,
like
sure,
hardcore.
of course.
And
Which is how a lot of us do it.
a lot of us do it that way. A lot of us still do it that way.
Of course, you know what we're doing. Don't worry.
I'm 29 years old, and this hotel says, okay, we're going to open up the restaurant that you want to open.
Yeah.
But under these conditions, because
Sure.
we have ownership and management that is really
makes sense. Yeah.
protective. So, I got to open a bit of the restaurant that I wanted to open at the Asbury, while still keeping in the vein that the hotel wanted.
So what are a couple of things that you learned from that? Like just opening a restaurant. I mean, say we're talking to somebody that wants to open a restaurant.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes into it that maybe they don't even understand. The permits, the licenses, contracting, depending on if it's existing or you have to remodel. I mean, there's a whole lot before you can actually open the doors.
There's a lot.
What are some things that you learned opening your first location?
I would say, if you've got a particular vision in mind, you have to commit and you have to be strong with that.
That's a good point.
Because you'll work, like in the position that I was in, I was working with the GM of the hotel, I was working with the owner of the hotel and that group that managed the hotel, as well as, some other folks within the hotel, and everyone had their own visions of what the space should be. And I had been brought on to build my restaurant. So, I again, being 29 and not being my money, I wasn't investing anything into the build out except for my time and, sweat and blood and tears.
Sure. Which is something.
That's something.
Yeah.
But a lot of my choices were kind of said, well, we're not going to do that. We're going to go with this instead.
Gotcha.
So, I wasn't super happy with all of the design choices at the Asbury when I was there. It was a beautiful restaurant, but it wasn't really the restaurant that I envisioned.
Wasn't yours.
So a year later, after opening it, we went through and we redesigned the restaurant with a lighter paint scheme and some touches that I wanted.
Okay.
And
so it ended up becoming a little more of your flavor.
More of my flavor, and ended up, I think we ended up getting more reservations, and it was just like it popped. So I would just say be confident in what your vision is and commit to that vision, and make sure that you have a team that's working with you that's bought into the vision, right?
That's great.
Because we've taken that everywhere
Great
else.
Advice.
Yeah, taken that everywhere else that I've ever done. So, while I was at the Asbury, I got to cook at the Goodyear House. I got to be the featured chef at the Second Harvest Food Bank, big gala thing they do uptown every year. I had a lot of opportunities that came while I was at Asbury when I was 29 to 31, 32.
But that's I think people see the publications and the gala and all these. Dang, look at Chris and all these things. Yeah, I've just been I put 9 years into a restaurant. Right. I went to school. I've got my own pop-up. I mean, it's, I think that's something that we have to point out.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into getting to that point.
100%.
I didn't get out of school and then just become,
some world-renowned.
No, there was a lot of, reinvention at McNinch House,
learning.
And then inventing Market Kitchen, learning all along the way, all this stuff.
I love that.
Grinding, learning, I go back all the time, 14, 15 years old when I was a busboy, and I had to take the mats out at the end of the night, the kitchen mats that are so gross and grimy, and spray those off every night. And that was one of my first jobs. And I was like, this is disgusting. I don't know why anyone would ever do this. But now it's one thing that I do. It's one of the first things I do with my dishwashers is I take them out and show them how to properly clean the mats, because everything matters.
100%.
Like, everything that we do in restaurants matter.
Yeah, not every part gets
it's not all
glamorized.
It's not all glamour,
but
you know,
every part plays its role.
Right.
If you don't have dishes, if you don't have silverware, if you don't have, because they're in the back,
right? Yeah.
What's happening? How can
your floors are grimy because they're not being taken care of, then that's a safety hazard and it's just gross, you know. So it's everything matters, and not everything is glamorous. You know, a lot of it's not.
Yep.
So,
You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
So you're at the.
So I'm at Asbury. Opened Asbury.
Okay.
Was digging it, but also kind of not digging it at the same time.
Uh-huh.
I think that myself and the GM of the hotel, honestly, we were really close friends.
Yep.
We're starting to get a little like overwhelmed with what was happening with management and stuff.
Yep.
I had two mutual friends reach out and say you should look at what Charlotte Marriott City Center is doing because they were rebranding themselves as the Marriott had bought that hotel and was making it their Red Domino project. So they were going to try out something close to 400 new project initiatives at this hotel and make this hotel the beta for what they want their Marriott of the future to look like.
Wow.
Food played a big part of that.
Okay.
Marriott started as a food company and then they got into hotels.
I didn't know that.
Like they started their first venture, they opened up a root beer stand in Washington, D.C. that sold root beer and tamales.
Wow.
And then they opened up like the A&W root beer restaurants. Like they opened up a bunch of those and stuff. And then they got into hotels. So they were restaurateurs before they were ever hoteliers.
I mean, talk about reinventing yourself. Right. And because I mean, that's the thing too, reinventing yourself and changing with times.
Right.
And wow, I did not know that.
Come 2016, Marriott Food and Beverage was kind of stale. Like it was, no one went to a Marriott to eat unless you were, you know, staying there and you didn't know anything about where you were at. So
that's a good point.
So they wanted to reinvent and make the restaurant like the soul of the hotel.
Okay.
So they were building Stoke with this idea of it being an immersive kitchen where the kitchen was inside of like the front and center. You walk into the hotel and the first thing you see is the kitchen of the restaurant, and then all the dining is surrounding it.
Interesting concept,
So it kind of lured me in, and then they were opening up Coco and the director of the coffee shop, which was going to partner with a local coffee roaster, not just bring in Starbucks or something like that.
Yeah.
And then they were reinventing banquets and catering and in-room dining and stuff to all focus more local, seasonal, regional products. You know, so that I signed on to be their culinary director.
Nice. What was that like?
It was interesting because I had never done anything that big, right? I went from McNinch House, 25 seats, Asbury, 40 seats plus 60 rooms in the hotel, to now 160 seats at Stoke, and then a coffee shop, and then banquets and catering that could do 850, you know, seated. And there was 200 and some odd rooms in the hotel. So
wow.
It was big.
So it was 5x what you had done.
Yeah, and I had, you know, at Asbury, I'd had a staff of maybe 12 to 15 in the kitchen and dish and management. And there we had a staff of 36, 37 just in kitchen with, you know, an executive sous and 3 other sous chefs. So, but, you know, again, fake it till you make it, right? And fueled by a lot of coffee, we made it. That was one thing about having Coco and the director there.
There we go.
Our coffee shop, like I was getting coffee, like
keep them coming.
But
I love that.
You know, Stoke got a lot of critical acclaim when we opened.
Okay.
You know, the food was,
what year did it open?
Great. We opened in 2017.
Okay.
16. My years are completely gone.
16,
2016.
5 years ago, yeah.
And, you know, we were kind of like the it restaurant for a minute there. And
that's awesome.
You know, it was a lot of fun.
Any big takeaways from that? Like that maybe you can pass some knowledge on? Anything that you learn about managing people or personalities or like people with egos or I don't know, because I know sometimes when you've succeeded at certain levels that happens sometimes.
It was really more about being open to new ideas and being open to things that you would be resistant to at first, right? So working with Marriott, I mean, it's a giant corporation, right? It's the largest hotel company in the world, and I was lucky enough to work out of their corporate headquarters in DC for a little bit and work directly with the executive chef for all of Marriott International and kind of pick his brain and absorb what he'd done. Brad was a really cool guy.
Sharp guy?
I mean, very sharp guy. Had been in the industry for a long time. He had surrounded himself there with other kind of R&D chefs that were also like at the top of their game.
Top notch.
You know, so learning.
I love that.
Learning a lot. But then also it was interesting to see him learning from what we were doing. Like we came in, me and my two sous chefs for Stoke, came in with all this like local produce and we're like, we're gonna make this dish. And he was like, I've never seen that done before. And it's like, you've got a guy's directing food and beverage for the largest hotel company in the world. And he's like, oh man, this is
interesting.
Like, he's learning from us.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
You know, that was an awesome relationship to have. But I will say that like I was kind of resistant to the whole corporate mindset mentality at the beginning. I was like, this is not, you know, I was told I was going to come in and be able to reinvent food and beverage, et cetera, et cetera. And now I have to like, you know, do all of this corporate part of it too. And I really kind of hesitated and pushed it off for a few months. And that's when I was like probably the most frustrated as we had opened and we were very successful, but now I was expected to also run a hotel's food and beverage program, you know, which was my job.
Yeah.
So it was our AGM of the hotel, to Lee McDowell, who like brought me in one day and was like, listen, like you've been butting heads against doing it this way now for like a few months and it's not doing anything like except for making you stressed and making us stressed and like making us wonder if we've got the right guy, et cetera, et cetera. So why don't you just, you know, try? And I tried and everything got a lot easier and got a lot better. And so I'm not saying that like go corporate because it's amazing. I'm just saying that be open.
I love that.
To try something
it's a
different.
Good lesson.
You know, because a lot of times we feel like we've had some success, and so we obviously know what we're doing.
Yeah.
But you know, there's other people around you, and you gotta like surround yourself with smart people and be okay like handing over the reins from time to time and trying something different, and generally it's going to work out. You know?
I mean, and it's all, I think, you know, from what, you know, running a business now for 12 years, it's all about perspective.
Right.
It's like, this is the perspective that I have. Well, I may not have everybody's perspective.
Right.
Maybe like somebody else can shine a light. I'm like, you know what? So I think being open, at least to listening or trying, I mean, good lesson, great lesson. Yeah. Okay, so you were at Marriott for how long?
So Marriott for
Stoke for how long?
3 years.
Okay.
And then, you know, my partner, Sean Potter, who was the front of house director at Stoke, he had come to me, you know, a year and a half, 2 years in, and was like, you know, we're having fun now, but I think we both know we're not going to be hotel guys forever.
So you met him there?
Yeah, he was my partner there. And he said, you know, would you be interested in doing something together, like independent? And so we started to kind of look like on the back burner, not seriously look, but look at different restaurants.
Scope out the scene, what's happening.
Scope out the scene, see what's happening. We looked at a few locations that were, you know, promising. And then a mutual friend introduced us to AJ Klink, who owns Goodyear House.
Okay.
And at the time it was just a house, and he had poured a concrete slab where the handyman shed is now, the bar, and not much else. But he showed us around the property and kind of told us.
It was a restaurant, or was it?
It was nothing. It was a house.
It literally was a house.
It literally was the house, the mill house, and then he had poured that concrete slab to do something to get his SBA loan, because he had to show that he was actively investing his own money into the property.
Okay.
But he walked us through the vision and stuff, and we were introduced to him probably in January, maybe December of 2018, 2019, somewhere around there.
Okay.
And then he had asked us to come on and join him as partners, and I told him no for the longest time. because I just wasn't sure.
Yeah.
You know, there's like a little, like things were going well for me at Marriott.
Yeah.
Like I was making good money. We had benefits. You know, again, I've got a wife and 2 kids at home.
Yep.
So
it's not just you. Yep.
Yeah. It would be me giving up on, you know, a great paycheck and all those benefits to take a gamble.
Sure.
So I told him no, but I told him that I would leave my door open and give him, you know, advice.
And, I mean, but you didn't know him.
Didn't know
AJ.
him. Didn't know him at all.
Okay.
Didn't know him at all.
So I mean, good piece of advice is, you know, before getting in business with somebody, maybe get to know him a little bit.
Get to know him a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a good thought, you know. Which I mean, it's maybe you felt a little unsure because AJ, you know, I mean, obviously, you know, we love you now, but you're a random guy, you know. So
and you know, he would email or text with, you know, kind of just asking for advice from time to time. So I got to know him and build a relationship through kind of giving him advice and helping him through some of the processes of opening the restaurant.
So he wanted to open is he a restaurateur?
He's not.
He's just a business guy.
He's a real estate guy. He's a commercial real estate guy.
And he just wanted to have a restaurant.
He just wanted to, he had built this, or he had built this in his mind as a neighborhood restaurant kind of gathering spot.
Okay.
You know, he already had the idea of it being the Goodyear House.
Okay.
Which I'm sure we'll get to in just a minute of what that means. But he had a vision in his head. He was just looking for some restaurateurs to
help
come
him
in and operate it.
Which is a good point. I mean, you know, we're not, you know, we're not all good at everything.
Right.
So you have to put a good team together. And I'm sure you're realizing that having a couple stores now. Right. Man, you can't do it solo.
Yeah, for us, it's our company. We talk a lot about having the right people in the right seat. You know, you can have the right people working with you, but if they're not in the right seat, then it's not doing any good.
Yep. For them or for you.
For them or for you. So, and that doesn't mean that you get rid of them. It just means that you like find the right seat for them.
Yep.
So
I love that.
We've had a lot of people that we kind of shuffled around from, like, okay, maybe you're not the best at managing, you know, the bar, but you're really good with people. So now you're a service manager.
There you
or, you know, you're
you're
not great at this station, but we're going to move you to this station. Now you flourish, right? So,
So he's emailing you.
He's emailing,
advice.
he's texting, advice.
You know, you're getting to know him a little bit.
I think I just said, okay, I'm in. Like, if I'm going to keep giving you advice, then I want it.
I need to benefit from this advice.
Yeah. So August of 2019, Sean and I, Sean had left Marriott in February or March. I left Marriott in August and came and we both joined AJ in August of 2019.
Okay.
And you know, did the last bit of planning for the restaurant for 6 months. We opened, started training in January of 2020, opened February of 2020, and then shut down in March of 2020.
What was it like opening your first restaurant? Like, what was that like?
Yeah, I learned a whole lot. I mean, you know, I had taken, you know, some of the lessons that I learned about, you know, making sure that people are bought into your vision and having people that have the same vision.
Yep.
And then, you know, committing to what you've put in your head that you want done.
Yeah.
And then being open to learning and trying different things. You know, that all came to fruition here, right? AJ had a serious vision for what the place would look like and what we would do. I think Sean and I both had a vision of, you know, the type of food we would serve, the type of service that we would offer. He's over all of the beverage program as well, so he knew exactly what we wanted in terms of cocktails and beers and wines and that kind of stuff. So, and then we just collaborated all together, the three of us, to build, you know, the space, and it's pretty cool. So
it's been a good partnership.
It's been a great partnership. Yeah.
I mean, I think that can make or break a business too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wrong partners.
Right.
You know, can't get along. Right. You know, overstepping boundaries, micromanaging, not showing up. I mean, whatever it is.
Yeah, I think we all have realized that, you know, we're experts at some things, but we're complete novices at other things. And it's okay to know when to back off.
Yeah.
Like, I don't I'm not the smartest guy when it comes to like managing numbers and stuff. Sean's great at that. You know, Sean is also great at schmoozing with tables and stuff, but he doesn't know a thing about how to run a kitchen and staff a kitchen staff. And AJ really is great at fundraising and finding us, you know, money to do things with. And he has a cool kind of artistic bent in some of his mind of like, well, this could look really cool in this space or whatever. So we all play well with each other.
So so tell us, you know, what is the Goodyear House? Tell us
so
the idea behind it.
The idea, because people, there's a lot of Goodyear tire jokes when we first opened. and then us having to close with the pandemic, there was a lot of like, well, I guess it wasn't a good year. But, you know, the idea behind a Goodyear House is it's a home that it is like a generational home, and it passes down from generation to generation, and every generation adds something to the home.
I like that.
During the good years. So, you know, you've added on a room, or you've added on a new, you know, barn or whatever, patio, whatever, and you've left your mark on that house. And so the house kind of lives and breathes with the people inside. So, you know, each room of the Goodyear House is decorated differently to signify different eras. And, you know, the home itself was built in 1903 as one of the first mill homes in NoDa, or what was called North Charlotte at the time.
Okay.
So the front room is decorated like the 1910s, you know, like the family would have had it decorated back then. And then you go into the bar and it's like indicative of the 70s. You come over here into the room that we're in now. I'm blanking on the name of it right now because I'm really tired. But this is like the 60s with the den, with the woodwork, and then, you know,
it's beautiful
these,
here, by the way.
Plants and stuff. Those things on the wall are actually taken out of a 1960s textbook on plant identifying and stuff. So it's, you know, it's kind of like this house has been here since 1903, and now it's at 2021.
It's like a modern version of an old house.
Yeah. So we've added on to it, and then since we've opened, we've added on to it. We've taken over the backyard of the house next to us. We've built,
which is an actual house,
which is an actual house. I mean, it's an office space, but yeah, it's a mill house, but it's now been converted to offices. But we took over that and built an expanded patio during the pandemic shutdown. We added on that greenhouse covering out there back in December to have some place that would be warm but still be outdoors.
Yeah.
Because we knew that opening back up, people would want fresh air and stuff.
So what was opening up during a pandemic year?
It was interesting, right? I mean, we were open for 48 days and then we had to shut the doors down and
it's the craziest thing, man.
You know, lay off 52 people, and it was real sad. But we knew that we were going to have them all, you know, come back. We are very determined that wasn't going to like slow us down. I mean, it wasn't really going to slow us down or derail our plans.
Yeah.
So we were planning, we were having meetings and stuff during the shutdown, just, you know, Zoom meetings about, you know, just to stay on top of things. So we started that expansion of that patio during the shutdown. We were lucky enough to get some.
So you guys had a vision already, even in the shutdown. You're like, this isn't going to derail us. Like, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
I love that.
We were lucky enough to
That's
get
like tenacity right there at its finest.
Yeah. We got some PPP money that helped us to bring staff back on and stuff when we were able to open. We knew that we wanted to be ready when we could open, and so we were kind of like checking with, you know, the state a lot, like, when do we think we're going to be able to open? And we'd gotten the word, you know, on Monday, Tuesday of the week that we could reopen on Friday, that like May 17th-ish. So we were ready to go. We already had kitchen staff lined up.
Good for you guys.
You know, front house staff lined up. We had already come in here and measured out, you know, 6 feet apart with tables and figured out how we were going to do sanitation and take care of people and stuff and wear masks while we were working and all that jazz. So we were able to get in here and hit the ground.
I love that.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting year.
It's an interesting year.
But you guys made it.
Well, we made it. And I mean, when we reopened, we were thriving, largely in part to our giant patio. But, you know, I think it was just about, again, not letting something derail the vision, right? You know,
I love that.
We've got an idea and we're not going to be stopped. So
I love that. And then you guys obviously just opened up a new spot.
We just opened up a new spot. Same kind of mindset. It was, you know, we started looking back in September for new spots, and we were showing the space in Rock Hill in December and signed the lease. And
anything that
really
you learned
quick
from
outfit.
opening a second location that maybe the first one you didn't learn?
I think we're still learning because we only just opened. We've
Gotcha.
been open for a week and a half at this point, and I think we knew that the demographics were going to be a little different in Charlotte compared to Rock Hill.
Sure.
So we're still kind of working through some of those. But what we've done with NoDa, what we've done with Rock Hill is identified the neighborhood and who's going to come to eat at the restaurant and make sure we're filling a gap.
Yeah, filling a need
For that particular neighborhood. Like NoDa has a lot of kind of hipsterish
eclectic
restaurants
style
and stuff.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of families that live here. So with Goodyear, we wanted it to be a place where the tattooed hipsters would feel like they were
good,
cool,
yeah,
right, to
and
come
welcomed,
to it,
yeah.
and families would also be welcome. Rock Hill, it's a lot of people in there. It's a lot of young families. It's a lot of people in their 30s, 40s with young kids, and then
Yep.
it's a lot of retirees. So we're like, we need to find something that all of those folks can really kind of rally behind.
It's a good point. I mean, before opening a business, do your due diligence.
Right.
Do some homework. Don't just blindly go in and, hey, let me open up a taco shop in the middle of, maybe that's not going to work there.
Right. Well, and yeah, you've got a vision. I mean, everyone has a vision for what they want to open, but again, not everything's going to open well and be received well in every neighborhood. So it's finding what that neighborhood or that area needs.
I love that. Chris, this was awesome.
Yeah.
I loved it. I hope everybody listening learned a lot from me because there's a lot to take in. I mean, you're what now, 20 years in the game?
Yeah. 23 years.
23 years. And I mean, there's a lot of gems that you just talked about: moving, locations, connections, networking, making friends, grinding, creativity. I mean, there's so much there. Congratulations to your success. I mean, we didn't even talk about the Bobby Flay thing, but you've won Chopped. You've gone, there's so many cool things that you've done. I'm just glad that I got to meet you and can continue to further our friendship. But yeah, I love this. And so episode 10 in the books of season 2 of our Paper Trails podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys have not been to the Goodyear House in Charlotte and NoDa, you guys got to stop by. Or if you're in Rock Hill,
love to have you at Old Town.
New location, Old Town, right?
Yep.
New location. Go scope it out. Support these guys. And if you have not, followed our content or subscribed, do it. We're on all the platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, obviously Instagram, Facebook, and support these guys. And they can find you at the Goodyear House.
We're at Goodyear House, and we're at Old Town Rock Hill on Instagram and Facebook. So.
Follow these guys on their socials. And so without any further ado, good to see you guys. We'll see you in the next episode. Thank you guys.
The restaurants you love, the food you crave, and the people that make it all happen. We tell their stories on the Paper Trails podcast with Albemarle Paper Supply.